To reflect a figure over a horizontal or a vertical line, in other words, a line that goes kind of sideways, left and right, or a line that goes up and down, all you have to do is graph the figure. If it's not already graphed for you, you're going to graph the line that they're telling you to reflect it over, or in other words, flip it over. And then all you have to do for those types of lines is just count how far each point is away from the line, and then graph the point the same distance on the other side of the line. Okay, so like for example number 1, you've got triangle ABC, and it says you have to reflect that triangle in the x-axis. So that means that you're going to take that triangle and flip it over the x-axis. So the x-axis is this line right here. So one thing that may help you is to darken the line that you're going to have to flip it over. So we're going to graph that x-axis. Even though it's kind of already labeled for us. So that's what we're flipping it over. And then we're going to take each individual point one at a time, and we're going to reflect it over that line. So since this is a horizontal line, all I have to do is count how far each one of those are. So like if I look at A, I'm going to count how far it is away from that line. So I go directly towards that line. So it's 1, 2, 3 units away. So then you're going to keep going on the other side of that line and count 3 units on the other side. Okay, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3 on the other side, and that's where A prime would land. So A prime would land right there. For B, same thing, but now notice B is on the other side of the line. So we're going to go this direction towards the line. So B is 1, 2, 3, 4 away. And make sure you're counting the spaces and not the lines when you're counting. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 units to get to the line. So we keep going in the other direction and count 4 that way. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's where B prime lands. So B prime landed right there. So now for C, notice C is actually on the line. So if the coordinate is actually on the line, it's actually going to stay right where it is. So C prime would actually be, it's the same spot that C originally was. And then you can connect these 3 points and that figure, and we'll usually dot it so we can see the difference in the original figure or the pre-image versus the image. That way we can see the reflection. So notice if you take this triangle and flip it over that line, this would be where it lands. Okay, so sometimes they might just ask you to graph it. Sometimes they might actually tell you to label the coordinates or tell what the coordinates are. So all we have to do now is tell what the coordinate of each of these are. So A, remember you start at the origin to tell the actual coordinate. So we have to go back 1, 2, 3, 4, and then up 3. So the coordinate would be -4, 3. That's where A prime landed. And then B prime, it was down here, so we have to go back 1, so that's -1. And then from there we have to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, so it'd be -4. So the coordinate would be -1, -4. And then C, or C prime, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's at 7. And then we didn't go up or down, so it'd be 7, 0. So that is the image after we reflected that triangle over the x-axis. Okay, so let's do another one. Let's say this time we have a parallelogram and we have to flip that over the line x equals 2. Well, you got to remember how to graph a line like this. So if it's just x equals a number or y equals a number, there's kind of a couple ways you can think of it. You can think of this, okay, this would be a line where all the x values are 2, so that's one way of thinking about it. Another way of thinking about this to be able to graph the line is it hits the x-axis at 2 and nowhere else on the x-axis. And so these are either going to be vertical or horizontal lines. And so if it's going to hit the x-axis at 2, so we're going to go on the x-axis to 2, which would be right there, and put a dot, and then we're going to think, okay, how can we draw this? It's either going to be vertical or horizontal to where it's going to hit the x-axis there and nowhere else on the x-axis. Well, if you kind of think about it, if we drew it horizontally, it's going to hit the x-axis everywhere, and that's not what we want. We want it to only hit the x-axis just at 2. So if you think about it, it would have to be vertical. So this would be a vertical line that goes through the x-axis at 2. So this would be the line that we're flipping that figure over. And then if you also kind of look at each little coordinate or point that's on that line, all of the points on this line have an x value of 2. So that should make sense. Okay, so we have to take this figure and we have to flip it or reflect it over that line. So since it's a vertical line, just like I did in the other example, all I have to do is count how far each point is away from it and do the same on the other side. So you can start with whichever point you want. I'll start with L because it's just the one that stuck out to me. So L is 1, 2, 3 away. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 on the other side, and there we go. There's where it lands. So that would be L prime. K, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 away. So I have to keep going and go 7 on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's where K prime would land. M, 1, 2, 3. So I go 1, 2, 3. There's where M prime lands. And then J, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the other side. And so there we go. And then we just connect them. So again, I usually make my image, the figure after I transform it, as a dotted figure. That way I can kind of know the difference right off the bat of which one is the original figure versus after I've transformed it. Okay, so that is the graph, and notice you can actually see this one a little bit easier where it kind of looks like it's been flipped over it. Okay, and then again they could ask you for the actual coordinates of it, so you would just go through, make sure you start at the origin, and then you would tell the coordinates of each. So like J prime, here's the origin, so I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have to go 9 to the right and then 2 down. So that'd be 9, negative 2. K prime, I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that would be at 9, 6. L prime, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1, 2, 3, so it'd be at 5, 3. And then, last but not least, M prime, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. So it'd be at 5, negative 5. So there we go. All right, let's do one more, and then we'll talk about how to reflect things over lines that aren't vertical or horizontal. Okay, so with this one, it says we have to reflect triangle ABC over the line y equals negative 3. And notice they didn't graph it for us. Sometimes they're going to graph it for you, and then other times they might give you coordinates. So if they give you coordinates, all you have to do is graph it first. So let's go ahead and graph it. So we got the coordinate 1, 2. That's where A is. Then we have negative 5, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then positive 2 means I go up 2. So that's B. And then C is at 2 and then negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just double checking. All right. So now I'm going to label them. Usually I will draw my figure first, and then just so I can see what it looks like, and then I'll draw my figure. Okay. So let me draw my figure here. So here's my triangle. And then you can always use like a ruler, if you have a ruler, to draw some nice straight lines. If you don't have a ruler, you can always use like the side of a sheet of paper. So I just have a sheet of paper here, or a little card, and I'm just going to use that to kind of make a nice straight line there. Okay, so you don't forget, if you don't have rulers, you can always use the edge of a sheet of paper. Okay, so from there we have to reflect this over the line y equals negative 3. So remember, when it's just y equals a number or x equals a number, these are the special lines that are either going to be vertical or horizontal. And so you got to kind of think through it. For this one, it's going to be the line where the y values are all the coordinates that are on the line have a y value of negative 3. So that's one way of thinking about it. Another way of thinking about it is this line is going to hit the y-axis at -3 and nowhere else on the y-axis except for -3. So I'm going to go on the y-axis to -3, 1, 2, 3, and put a dot. And I'm going to think, okay, how can I draw my line? And it's either going to be vertical or horizontal so that it hits the y-axis at -3 and nowhere else on the y-axis. Well, if I drew it vertically, it would hit the y-axis everywhere. So then the only other option would be it has to go horizontally. So this one is actually going to be a horizontal line that goes through the y-axis at -3. So notice this line right here hits the y-axis at -3 and nowhere else. Okay, so we're flipping this over that line. Okay, and it's a horizontal line, so you can count and then just do the same on the other side. Okay, so I'm going to start with B. How far is it away from the line? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 away. So I'm going to go 5 on the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would land right there. So that's B prime. And then C, it's actually, it kind of starts out on this side. So I'm going to start out, okay, it's 2 away. So I have to go 2 away on the other side. So that would be right there. So C prime would end up right there. And then A, it's over here, so I'm going to count in this direction. You always count towards the line. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I go 5 on the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there is A prime. Okay, then just like you did before, we're going to connect them. So make sure you're connecting the coordinates that you just drew, and sometimes the figures will overlap, and I know that's kind of difficult to kind of see, but in the end, notice it kind of looks like it's been flipped over that line. So everything that started out on this side ended up on the opposite side, and then same thing here, this point ended up on the opposite side of the line. Okay, then you just tell the coordinates. So remember, you start at the origin to tell the coordinates. So A prime, we have to go right 1 and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that would be at 1, -8. B prime is, let's see, start at the origin. We got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So -5 and then down 8. And then C prime ended up right here, so we have to go to the right 2 and then down 1. So right 2 would be a +2, and then down 1 would be -1. So that is how you reflect figures over a vertical or horizontal line.